Hello and welcome to the third and the Don Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil, as always, here to recap last week's action and to preview this week's action. That would be recapping Week 6, previewing Week 7 of the NFL season. First of all, Cecil, how you doing?
I'm great. My Bengals got another win, so that's always great. It was a weird week of football. I'll say that. A lot of upsets and a lot of some really dull games, especially in some of the bigger slots. So it was an interesting week of football. I'm never going to say it was a bad week of football because there's no such thing. But ultimately, there's definitely some interesting things we're going to talk about here.
Interesting point, Cecil. I just saw a stat today that this is the lowest number of touchdowns scored in a season through this many weeks since 2010. It is the biggest scoring margin in like the last 5 years between teams. So it has been a boring season, but hell, it's football, so we're still gonna love it. Let's get started with our recap of Week 6 before we get to our picks and other stuff. So, Cease, let's start it off. The Chiefs on Thursday night win 19-8. Now, remember we talked about this one as the spread being 10.5, and the Broncos almost backdoor covered it. They got a fourth quarter touchdown after they had nothing going in this one. Russ is still Russ. The Broncos still stink, and the Chiefs, we've kind of warned that they're not playing up to their best level. Thankfully, the Chiefs get a late fourth quarter field goal to cover that spread. If you did bet on the Chiefs, I believe we both picked the Chiefs, but not. It was an ugly Thursday night game. We're used to seeing ugly Thursday night games, but in the end, Chiefs are good and the Broncos are bad. That's all. We already knew that going in.
Right. We knew the Chiefs were going to win this game. That wasn't really ever the concern. And if it was somebody's concern, I guess they haven't watched many Broncos games. But there's still things, to take away from this game and kind of be worried about with the Chiefs. Sure, it's a divisional game, but it's at Arrowhead as well, so it's not like the Broncos had any of the advantage here. The Broncos are one of the worst teams in the NFL. It's very clear. It's very clear in this game. They could not get an offensive drive together until the fourth quarter, really. And that's really the only reason they had a shot at covering in this game. Um, the Chiefs' offense, though, did not look good. Like, it was slow. I mean, Pacheco honestly looks like the best part of that offense. Pacheco and Kelsey does his thing. He had a good game. But these receivers are not coming together for Patrick Mahomes. That's a big thing I'm starting to notice. And honestly, if you're a Chiefs fan, it's something I would definitely start getting concerned with. Early on, you go, yeah, it's early. Patrick Mahomes makes it happen. But these guys, this is week 7 or week 6, I believe, and these guys aren't getting any better. Kadarius Toney finally did something, scored a touchdown. I mean, after being completely just kind of out, incompetent so far, unfortunately. Um, and Patrick Mahomes, I don't think got 250 passing in this game. And we only had one passing touchdown. They had 2 touchdowns in this game, and it was a poor performance for a team that's supposed to be known for its offense. The good news for the Chiefs, and honestly, the only thing that makes me not lose complete confidence in them this year, especially when it comes playoff time, is their defense is a good. It's great. I mean, it's one of the better defense in the NFL right now. You look at it; they're aggressive. They can rush the passer. All of their draft picks in recent years, Karloftis, Trent McDuffie, Bolton in the linebacker position, they've all hit. They've all done really well so far. Obviously, they're still way. They're not all elite talents, but you're drafting at the end of the first round. You're drafting late in every round, and they pulled out some guys that are very solid. Contributors on this team, starters, and they've really made the draft work. So hats off to their GM. Hats off to the organization for really filling holes, and it'll be interesting to see a Pat Mahomes team, that's not necessarily going to be known for its offensive firepower. Pat Mahomes can get a score when he needs to, but this is going to be the feared Chiefs offense that we had over the last couple years. I mean, you can get Kelsey. Kelsey will have his moment, but ultimately these guys that are on the outside for them are just not making anything happen to this point in the season. There's still time to change it, but if I'm a Chiefs fan, time to start being a little concerned.
Yeah, they just traded for today McCole Hardman, the guy who's been on their roster forever. The Jets signed him and didn't use him for all the Aaron Rodgers guy. Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard are taking all the snaps from the guy that they signed without Aaron Rodgers in mind, really. So he's back. I don't know how much that helps because he was a solid receiver for them, but he never. It still was Travis Kelsey and then everyone else. So I mean, it's good that he has familiarity, but Rashee Rice has been the best receiver. I don't think he was. I don't think he has ever been as good as Rashee Rice has been, given the snaps that they've played so far. So we'll see if he can give a little bit more juice to the Chiefs the rest of the season. We'll move on to the London game, Cease. The Ravens beat the Titans 24-16. The Baltimore receivers didn't drop as many passes. That was a huge factor in this game. Tennessee had Ryan Tannehill get hurt. They put in Malik Willis, and he was bad. Ryan Tannehill has not been that good this season. We've talked about that as well. They also have kind of not really used Derrick Henry as much. Tyjae Spears has been getting a lot more snaps than Derrick Henry, and you can say, well, they were losing in this game, but 12 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown, still very effective for Derrick Henry for going up against a team that only had 24 points. You think you could get him more involved. And I'm sure the English fans love this season. Justin Tucker had 6 field goals, so that's the best part of their day.
It is. They love kicking. Kicking balls is a tradition in England unlike any other. But it was kind of it shook out kind of the way we were expecting, right? Ravens took a little bit bigger lead. That's probably due to the injury to Ryan Tannehill. But I mean, I think losing Ryan Tannehill to the Titans isn't really that much of a loss ultimately. If anything, it helps their season because they might get an extra loss or two to get a better draft pick. The Titans aren't good. I mean, their offensive play calling is just awful. They don't know how to use Derrick Henry. I'm starting to not understand why he's even on this team anymore. Because they just aren't utilizing him. They want to be a power run game. That's what he was there for. That's when the Titans were good. It's when Derrick Henry was getting fed the ball 25 times a game. Now, he's getting fed the ball in this one. He almost got 20 carries. He ripped off, like you said, over 90 yards. I do my math right here. I think we're at 8 yards a carry. If Derrick Henry's getting much yardage, keep feeding him the ball. Let him run it down the Ravens' throat because ultimately the Ravens' defense had a lot of injuries again this year, and they really aren't, elite by any means. The Ravens have kind of done the opposite of the Chiefs have. The Chiefs got better on defense. I think the Ravens' offense has finally gotten better and has opened up a little bit for the receivers. Obviously, need to catch the passes. That's been an issue, but this is kind of what they can be and how they can do when they're actually executing the plays that they've been working on all season. The play style is exciting. I think Lamar Jackson can continue to take steps forward in this scheme. I would love to see him kind of be let loose a little more. I know they're worried about injuries. Again, I've never liked when you kind of put a leash on these rushing quarterbacks. I'd love to see them, just go out there and just if they got to take the game over their legs. That's what's going to happen. It didn't have to necessarily happen in this one. But yeah, the Ravens win pretty easily in London. A lot of field goals. There's still some red zone offense the Ravens need to clean up, obviously. But if you're the Tennessee Titans, I mean, you've got that big emotional win over the Bengals, and since that point, you've kind of squandered it. And any momentum you had or any real chance in the AFC South, over the last years has shown that it was an aberration. It was just one of those games, and you're back to the cellar and. Would try Tannehill hurt. Maybe it's time to start selling some people off.
Yeah, we thought that the Titans and Colts would be more of a factor in this division, but now Anthony Richardson's hurt, Ryan Tannehill's hurt. The Titans don't look like a completely different team. And so it might be the Jags and the Texans battling it out. We're going to get to the Texans later, but man, are they playing well too. So just a little bit different vibe there. And man, this AFC North season, it's going to be a battle down the stretch. I think the Bengals have one of the toughest schedules. Only a 23% chance to make the playoffs. And it's funny, we're going to talk about them right now because their game's up next, but just a good thing they got this win against the Seahawks, 17-13. Started off, they scored, 14 points first half. You're thinking, hey, this is pretty good. Offense is kind of getting a little bit better maybe than at least in the last several weeks. And then the offense just hits the fritz in the second half. The play calling was bad. Joe Burrow looked like he was more inaccurate than he had been after it looked like he was kind of healthy after last week's game against the Cardinals, and then the first half looked like he was at least okay. It just all went awry, but thankfully that defense stepped up. Lou Anarumo had the defense ready to play. Trey Hendrickson had a big game. Cam Taylor-Britt had a big game at corner and had a pick. It's It's fortunate that they got back to 500 when they did, because now you got a schedule coming up. I mean, the next two games are the 49ers and Bills. You still have so many division games left with this very tough division. They're so lucky that defense stepped up in this one.
They, you know, that's one of the things among the obviously most positive thing to take away from this game is the defense has not been there for the first couple weeks. Arizona, we kind of started to see it, and then this week, we've got DJ Turner stepping up as a rookie corner. We got Cam Taylor-Britt as a second-year player. Trey Hendrickson came alive. Things on defense I'd love to see more is one, Nick Scott just off. He's really only doing a. If he can lock on to one target, he's good. But if he needs to play a zone or do something where he needs to look and focus on multiple things, it seems like he really, loses his speed, and that's kind of the thing he needs to have, and that's his biggest strength. And the rest of the D-line rotation needs to do something. B.J. Hill had a great, play in this game as well as a defensive tackle, as a 3 technique. But, outside Trey Hendrickson, no one's getting consistent pressure. And, we start, again, one of the big problems last year, too. The defensive line starters were getting a ton of snaps. And that seems to be the issue again this year because they didn't invest in a 3 technique backup behind B.J. Hill. They're hoping Zach Carter really develops, which has not really been fruition. But other than that, we have some, corner play. If your secondary is playing well, they can fix Nick Scott's issues or just get Jordan Battle in there more often. I think the secondary is going to be great, and the idea that they could have 3 corners. Awuzie is kind of taking a step back. I think, obviously it's part of the, knee injury with the ACL. But, if you have Cam Taylor-Britt and DJ Turner playing well, one, Awuzie is a free agent. So they probably weren't going to re-sign him anyway. That's a great corner tandem, but they keep playing like this down the stretch to have going in the future and know you kind of have corner address for a while. Because, that's the biggest thing in the NFL. It's a passing league. If you can get those kind of lockdown guys in the secondary, you can free up a lot of stuff for the defense, apply more pressure, which is something they kind of need with simulation. They need to simulate some pressure out there. Offense, Orlando Brown has played really well. He played really well in this game before he got hurt. There's just some – Cordell Volson is kind of the black eye of the offensive line. He's just getting absolutely shredded and grading by, every major offensive line grading site. He's pretty much ranked dead last in a lot of categories for starting linemen. He's just – I'm not sure where the regression is coming from, but he is just – doing anything out there. He's been a complete liability. And a lot of the issues are coming from right there. Ultimately, that's where the pressure is coming from, right there. Cordell Volson, he's getting tossed around by bigger linemen. And it's something that I don't know if you can allow this to keep happening the entire year because we've seen where the Bengals offensive line, there's a guy that's very weak compared to everybody else. That's where they're going to focus. And everything that's gone horrible with the offensive line over the last couple of years is because the team is focused on that one guy and then just blew him up. So, I think there's somebody, we can find either maybe on the team or, if we got to go outside the team, somebody that can play at above replacement level. Because Cordell Volson is not playing at that point right now. I know quality line is hard to find in the NFL, but we got to be able to find someone that can at least play close to league average because we can't have a guy who's ranking dead last in categories protecting Joe Burrow, especially with the injury he has, the amount of money that is now associated to him. Maybe you spend a little more money on a left guard or maybe you trade for somebody on an unhappy team and plug them in. Will the Bengals trade? Probably not, but I think the offense will ultimately get in rhythm. I think the biggest takeaways is I would address that left guard position if they can. If they need to make a change with the chemistry, put someone else there. I don't know how it can honestly get too much worse from what I've seen 5 weeks in. And from there, I think a lot of this stuff is just rhythm issues. It's Joe Burrow's accuracy because he's not 100% has been problems. I think sometimes the routes just are off. And I think that's a big thing. And they go away from the run way too quickly. I think they should just use all, keep them fresh, keep them hungry. They hit the hard then and running fast. Of course, Joe Mixon just staying in there. If they're running the ball 20 times, I don't want Joe Mixon to get all 20 carries. I think maybe he gets a majority. I think he should get over half. But other than that, you should mix in those other guys. Not that I think any of them are elite, but ultimately, I think they can have some elusiveness that Joe Mixon has lacked at times. And, I think there's just some things we need to be more accepting to try on offense instead of just hoping that things work the magic that they have a year prior. Because that's not how we get better. That's just how we're gonna stay in this kind of we'll do well one game and then we'll teeter back. They need to find that rhythm most importantly, and I think there's just make it open season. No one's job's safe necessarily. If somebody's not playing well, you know it's not a sunk cost. We're following the sunk cost fallacy where we think we got to keep going back to because we already invested in them. That's how good footballers do it. If somebody's not working, they bench them. That's how it works. They put somebody else in. And that's how the NFL works. It's whoever is performing the job the best. I don't care if you're what you're getting paid. If you're not performing, you're not getting on the field, especially to protect someone as important as Joe Burrow.
Absolutely, Cecil. You hit on some nice points there because I agree. I think, the past several years, the Bengals have gone like pretty far in, but not all the way in. And a lot of it is just some of these, like, they know they have these weaknesses, but they don't fix them. So before it was the offensive line, and then they put a lot of money in the offensive line, and then it was, let's throw Jackson Carman in there, let's move positions, let's throw Cordell Volson in there last year. And it's like, still moving positions and still weak point of the line. You knew that you could have upgraded it this offseason if you wanted to. There's plenty of guards, especially interior linemen, don't cost as much. You could have gotten someone else. You could have drafted someone else. They just never go that extra mile to go like, hey, let's make sure we go all in. Let's at least get this guy some competition in camp. Hey, last year we had 3 receivers all year. Let's go sign T.Y. Hilton as a 4th receiver just in case one of them gets hurt because the offense just totally changed when one of the receivers got hurt last year. And this year we still got like, hey, Irv Smith has been hurt at tight end. He hasn't really produced as much as you would want. Let's go make a trade. Let's go get Darren Waller from the Giants. Giants aren't going anywhere this year. Let's go trade the Broncos for Samaje Perine back because they're not going anywhere. Let's get a second running back that can do something. So I liked all your points. This is the biggest frustration as a Bengals fan. You see some of these teams. The Chiefs noticed a weakness at wide receiver this year. They went and at least tried to go get Cole Hardman. Is it going to work? I don't know. Probably not. But at least they're trying to go that extra mile. Like the Ravens last year signed Justin Houston to a 1-year deal. Old as dirt, still a very good player and can give him something off the bench, like a rotational pass rusher. Like, that's what you want to see. They went and signed Jadeveon Clowney this offseason when no one else wanted him. Like, go try to be more aggressive. That's a big long rant for me, but basically it's just let's go use the rest of the cap space this year. Let's try to maximize the Super Bowl window because next year it might be different. We might be losing someone. We might be losing T. Higgins. We might be, losing some other guys. So let's try to go that extra mile while we can afford it to with the salary cap. And maybe if you have to trade a 6th or 7th round pick, right now, that if you can get a player who can contribute, that's way more worth it than keeping that 6th or 7th round pick. So that's my soapbox I'm going to stand on with them. It's just I wish they would go all the way in one time. We'll keep it moving to the Washington Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons. Cecil, we mentioned the Desmond Ridder unbelievable streak, had not lost a home game since his junior year of high school. It is now coming to an end. Washington beat them 24-16. Desmond Ridder did not have his best game. He was playing better at home than he was on the road, but that's all over now. Now, Drake London had a good game. It seems like one of their skill position players, whether it's Bijan, Drake London, or Kyle Pitts, can have a good game, and then the rest of them all have to do nothing. That's the Arthur Smith way, apparently. So this was Drake London's week to step up. Kyle Pitts was last week. Bijan was earlier in the season. And we're still giving Tyler Algier like 13 carries instead of just giving Bijan like 20. He's a rookie running back who's one of the best in the league, and we're just not going to use him. So if you're a Falcons fan or if you're a fantasy person, you're probably frustrated with the Falcons, and I would say good riddance to them for losing for how they're using their skill position players.
Yeah, shame on them. Kyle Pitts did get a touchdown, though. That's more than he's done in a while. But you're right. I don't understand what's so hard to get all 3 of your star, skill players involved in this game. It shouldn't really be that hard to get these guys going, especially when teams have to on multiple people. Gotta be a play where if it isn't open, Bijan Robinson probably is, or Kyle Pitts is. Somebody's gonna have a good up on them. They're all physical freaks. They're all guys that can easily create mismatches on a team. Like, how many linebackers are going to cover Kyle Pitts? How many, honestly, cornerbacks are good enough to cover somebody as big as Kyle Pitts and as fast? I don't know, but the reality is, if somebody's focusing on one, you take advantage until they change it, and when they change it, you need to go to those other guys. You need to get them involved. Get Bijan on the screen. Do whatever you got to do in carries. Getting Patterson in there doesn't make any sense to me. Why is him? Why are Algier the snaps they do? I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. Bijan's your road to win games. If you want me a run grading offense, Bijan should probably get the ball 20 times a game. The Falcons can't afford to lose games. The NFC South is very winnable, but they need to make that happen. And the way to do that is to maximize every snap they get and not expected. The secondary has, the front seven had some issues. In this game they weren't. The defense wasn't as strong as Sam Howell, but they're still a good team here. And then on the Commanders side, I mean, they are the streak breakers. That's their new thing, and it's crazy how many streaks they have actually broken at this point. It's kind of funny whether it's by them beating a team or by them losing to them now with the Bears. They just, if you got a streak that you don't want to end, you better hope the Commanders. Or if you're on a huge losing streak, maybe you pray the Commanders are on your schedule soon. So they played well. Sam Howell played well in the game. They got Curtis Samuel. Terry McLaurin was finally involved again this week. That's great, especially for owners that love Scary Terry out there. Good to see him get the ball. And then obviously Brian Robinson has been a very underrated running back for them so far. So Commanders are still playing decently well. Do they have a shot at anything? Probably not. You never know. The seventh wild card, third wild card spot, the seventh seed in the NFC seems to always be whoever wants at the end of the season. Going 8-8 and just trying to get that ninth win, get it for you. And there's a chance that the Commanders play games like this. They beat some of these key teams like the Falcons. Be there and maybe have a tiebreaker over some of these guys. We'll see. Not put them in my playoff picture yet, but there's always a chance, and this is kind of one of those key games because the Falcons may be one of those guys that will get in over because it could be close.
Yeah, so as you mentioned with the streak breakers, let's hope that the Bengals play the Commanders in the Super Bowl. Bengals 0-3, trying to break the streak here, so we're rooting for them. We'll root for the Commanders so they can do that for us. But yeah, I agree with you. I would not want to play the Commanders if I am on a streak. We talked about it last year with the Eagles and everything too. So the 72 Dolphins, definitely thank them for sure. They this week they also got to drink because all the undefeated teams were eliminated. So that's always fun to see the 72 Dolphins celebrate. Cecil, let's go to the Vikings and Bears game. I won't take up too much time here. We knew Justin Jefferson was hurt coming in. We knew these two teams kind of sucked. Then Justin Fields got hurt, kind of limited any chance of a comeback. Although backup Tyson Bagent from Shepherd University Division II came in and didn't look too bad. So we'll see if he's got any juice. It looks like Justin Fields is doubtful for this week. Probably going to miss the game and maybe a couple more weeks with a thumb injury. So Bagent's the guy, a rookie. Undrafted rookie out of Shepherd University. His dad was an arm wrestling champion. That's why you come to the show. We have all the info on everything you might need. So Cecil's going to officially challenge his dad to an arm wrestling championship. If Cecil wins, he gets $1,000. If Bagent's dad wins, then Cecil has to be a Bears fan. So that's what we're going to do.
Some high stakes for me. But yeah, I mean, Fields gets hurt in this one. I mean, that's really the only hope they have as an offense. DJ Moore seems to have gone back into hibernation in this game. Again, I get, Badgin's quarterback right now, but I mean, can we get the guy involved? Like, just one game DJ Moore has, and it seems to have been like this with the Panthers in the last couple of years too. DJ Moore, like, Matt has this great game where you're like, wow, that guy's great. He's the NFL, and then he just disappears back into the woods. Like, no one knows where he goes. Like, why can this guy who can help teams suddenly get not used ever? It's weird. But that's neither here nor there. Justin Fields does put a damper on the Bears. Not that there were any expectations. So if you're a Bears fan, it sucks. As long as he comes back healthy, it'll be okay. And again, it's just maybe the other team, maybe the defense, the offense, that can take a step forward, and just play together and get some kind of rhythm, because It's unlikely knowing what's been going on so far. There's really no good news if you're the Bears. The Vikings, they kind of got a pass. They got lucky here with Justin Fields getting hurt because there was a chance. And even in the end, the Bears were looking like they could mount a comeback. As the Vikings suck. It's just that simple. They've gone from pretenders, from frauds, to now just they are no longer frauds. They just straight up suck. So, R.I.P. Kirk Cousins, the Vikings. They should trade him right now, maximize that value. I mean, if you're the New York Jets, holy crap! Please trade for Kirk Cousins if you're really serious about this season. Because please don't make us keep watching this. I know we'll get to them and maybe some interesting things that have been said over the last day or two with a certain Jets quarterback. But love of God, let's get Kirk Cousins out of there. Let's embrace the tank. Let's stop being in tank denial because there's no place worse to be than 7-10 in the NFL. So they get a win. It's meaningless. Vikings aren't going anywhere.
The worst thing that's going to happen is they have a premier receiver. They have a solid number 2 they just drafted in Jordan Addison. They have the highest graded left tackle in all of NFL, that is Christian Darrisaw. They have the highest graded right tackle in the NFL, and Brian O'Neill. And they are going to let Kirk Cousins walk and then have a mid-first round pick and not be able to get their guy. Trade him now, and that way you can draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, wherever you might get that top 5 pick, and you can have them come into this system where you have those 2 top tackles and you have those 2 wide receivers, and then you can draft a running back to go with them. It just makes too much sense. The Vikings are being idiots right now, if I do say so myself, being in this limbo state. If they're winning, if they're like 5-2 or 4-2 right now instead, sure, maybe you go for it one last year with Kirk Cousins, but you're not, and it's going to be very hard to get to that point. So definitely with you, just go with the tank. Go with the tank and see how it goes. Next one up, one of the more frustrating games of the week, Cease. The Browns beat the 49ers 19-17. Now, Deshaun Watson didn't play. He's been cleared to play, said he didn't feel comfortable, so P.J. Walker gets to start for the Browns after Dorian Thompson-Robinson had been starting in place of Deshaun Watson. Didn't really play that well. He had 2 interceptions. This game was kind of marred by some bad weather, some bad wind. The 49ers got injured. No excuse, though. The credit for this game has to go to the Browns defense and Jim Schwartz. You brought up some stats about how he is successful against Kyle Shanahan. The stat I'll bring up is the Browns defense last year was very bad in EPA per play when they played zone coverage. EPA per play is expected points added for the defense. You just kind of reverse that, basically. And they were the second best in the league in man coverage, but they played a lot more zone coverage last year. This year, Jim Schwartz comes in and he plays a lot more man coverage where they were good at last year. And what do you know? They rank first in the league. So maybe sometimes it's not rocket appliances cease to make a team better. It's just taking what works and continuing to do it.
Right. You don't have to reinvent everything. It's a good stat. I mean, it'd be great to see the Browns do well in a game where it's not pouring down. I just want to say that. It's great. They're world beaters. Unfortunately, Super Bowls are played in domes, so watch out for that if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. Crowned yourself, world champions. You're already, Super Bowl bound. The reality is, you might have a quarterback who is he quiet quitting? Are we getting a quiet quit? Is Deshaun Watson just taking the money? My shoulder kind of hurts. Really feel like playing. There's some weird reports going out there. And Browns better off without Deshaun Watson? No. Especially considering what they have. Is Deshaun Watson the long-term answer? Well, the answer is it doesn't matter because they owe him $230 million. But ultimately, all the problems. He didn't want to go to Cleveland in the first place. That was well documented. He then basically did it because they threw an ungodly amount of money on him. And now he's got to learn, and I want to, tell people if they're injured, playing through injuries, it's important to be healthy. We're getting weird reports like, he's hurt, and, there's kind of these second, I can't play today, where it wasn't expected at all. It's kind of coming out of left field. And it's weird because also there is so much money tied up to him, have no way of recouping. They can't cut him. And the Browns need him. Like they're in the hunt. The AFC North is very winnable, and he's just not out there. They had to sign Walker. They only had one rookie quarterback. He kind of left them, out to dry last week, where they had to start a rookie quarterback second. That was not something they obviously wanted to do. But this all begs the question of, what are the Browns going to be able to do when they are, their defense is great. It's one of the best in the league. I am totally fine with admitting that. Myles Garrett is playing crazy. The defensive secondary, Denzel Ward, Newsome, all those guys are playing really well. But what's this Browns offense going to do? Ultimately, they lost Nick Chubb. Obviously, Kareem Hunt's been brought back in. He had some good plays. Jerome Ford hasn't looked great. But, Deshaun Watson or not, this offense just looks thrown together at times. Stefanski looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's kind of sad considering he's an offensive-minded head coach. I think for him and what we knew with the Vikings at the time, he just loves running the ball. And that's not necessarily a great, way to win NFL games anymore unless you have or Derrick Henry. So, where you're at, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, that's great. You're 3-2, kings of the AFC North right now. It's a very winnable division. They've got defense that is as good a shot as everybody else because no one else is playing great. But the reality is, and it's a lot like the Pittsburgh Steelers are, your offense can't really do too much. You're relying so much on your defense to score points basically for you and get turnovers and so you can win field advantage. That simply isn't going to work come, late in the season with playoffs, things like that. Great offenses are going to score some points. And you can't hope to God that you're going to get rain ever. The Bengals offense has been a wreck anyway. On top of it, made it basically great team. They get some injuries. The Browns deserve the win. I'm not going to tell them they don't. It's just I would when the elements aren't completely to their favor in their football. Be able to win games against tough teams, in less than ideal situations. When I see that, I start saying, all right, the Browns are going to make the playoffs. But what I see right now is I see a team taking advantage of, other people just not playing well and not being equipped for what Cleveland they play in. So we'll see what happens. They got another matchup against the Steelers too. Will they blow as well? There's still a lot of season for the Cleveland Browns. The AFC North is a wide open race, and we will see what happens. But they got to win. Unbelievable. Good job for them for the upset. But they got some weird problems they need to address, especially for a team that's 3-2.
Absolutely, they do. AFC North definitely is a division we're going to have a lot to say about the rest of the way. Very, very competitive. Definitely with you. I would love to see them win games in a more 21st century fashion. The defense is good. Definitely can help them along the way. But if that offense can't get going a little bit better, I don't know what the ceiling is here. Good for them to beat a good team. I think it does give them some confidence moving forward. We'll see where that takes them. Next one up, Cease. The Dolphins beat the Panthers 42-21. What we expected coming in was pretty much that. What we weren't expecting is Panthers went up by 14 points. The Dolphins quickly come back in that one, win 42-21. If you were a smart person, you would have put money down on the live line right away. That won you some money for the Dolphins. But more or less, this is exactly what we expected. The Dolphins are a good team. The Panthers are a bad team. Tua and Tyreek are both MVP candidates. What do you expect, Cease? That's just how it goes.
Right. And, if you're a betting man, the Dolphins have, if you've been betting Dolphins games, they have paid you out very well. Obviously the Bills game is probably the only game where, it just went completely awry. Other than that, they've been an absolutely dominant team. Again, Panthers went up 14-0, and I sat there and maybe I was, worried about having a 14.5-point spread if, you're a betting person with spreads. But ultimately, I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind the Dolphins can win this. And honestly, win it by 10 points still. They ended up, exceeding that completely and just dominating the Panthers. Really, the backup threw a pick six to make it 21. It was really basically the Panthers scored those 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and from that, offense did not do a single thing, and the Dolphins woke up and just destroyed them from then on. And we're talking absolute domination. Raheem Mostert just continues to just eat yards. score touchdowns. The man's 31 years old. I mean, he looks like, he just got in the NFL fresh out of college. You're scheming people open. Tyreek Hill had a little bit of a hamstring thing happen, so that's concerning, something to watch out, especially with a guy who is able to have such great speed, and that's such a big part of his game. But Jalen Waddle's starting to wake up as well. It just seems like they just plug and play these guys in. Tua's making good decisions, and just the scheme. I've never been so like obsessed with an offense, honestly, in my life, especially for a team I don't root for. I mean, I'm becoming I'm part of two and on now, as I've said. But ultimately, I can't help but root for the Dolphins because I love the personalities on the team. I love what they're doing as an offense. Their defense isn't something to just sleep on either. They have good guys. They're big. They're fast. So maybe they're not necessarily, a top 5 defense, but they're guys that are going to fly around and, they're going to be there in some of the big moments. So, again, I'm still on the Dolphins train. If my Bengals can't get there to the Super Bowl, I want the Dolphins to be there. So I think they're playing extremely well. If you're a Panthers fan, it just sucks because the reality is you don't have a first-round pick. You're literally traded up for Bryce Young. And I don't want to call him a bust, I'm saying that by any means, but the return has not been great so far. Again, he doesn't have the offensive line you'd hope. He doesn't have the weapons that he needs. He really hasn't been put in a position to really succeed. It's very frustrating, too, if you watch the Houston Texans, who have been an absolute dumpster fire, barely have any weapons or anything to protect C.J. Stroud, and he's doing well. So that can absolutely be frustrating if you're a Panthers fan. I think Bryce Young will get better. I think they will turn that corner, but this is the risk with mortgaging your draft picks, especially when your team that is probably going to pick high. Like, I hate when teams that are a bottom 10 team in the NFL just go, yeah, I'll trade you my next year's first round pick. And I just sit there and I'm like, well, there's a top 10 pick, and half the time it ends up being a tie. If I'm a team, a competing team or just a middle tier team, I'll go, absolutely, I'd love a top 5 NFL draft pick. Thank you so much for my mid-tier player that you just want and you're desperate for. Seeing teams keep being bad over and over. They make poor decisions. I'm hoping Bryce Young plays well, but if things don't pan out with Bryce Young and the draft capital they spent and the players they traded, we could be looking at a long-term depression as a Panthers fan. Good thing is Carolina's a great place to be. Charlotte's a nice town. It's a good place to be. Weather's a little better. Maybe you hang up the cape and you go, I'll see you next year. I don't know, but I mean, it feels like that, right? I mean, the defense is good, but they are they gave up in this one. They had a lead and they squandered it. And that's honestly more frustrating than if we had just gotten beaten for 60 minutes. How many teams can go, I went up 2 possessions and then got crushed by 21 points? So yeah, it's rough days in Carolina.
I think my question to you, Cease, I have an answer in mind. When was the last time that you expected so many blowouts from one team? So, like, not the Panthers, but the Dolphins to blow out so many teams. Like, when was the last offense we saw like this? Like, I don't even think Mahomes at his peak was blowing teams out like this. And I'm not saying he's peaked or anything, but just, in the past couple of years over his peak. Because for me, I think this reminds me of like the Peyton Manning Colts with how many points they're scoring and how they're doing it. It's just that's the last time I can remember something this unique for an offense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was like mid 2000s Peyton Manning Colts. We have the 18-1 New England Patriots year. It felt like that a lot. Where, I mean, they just outmatched everyone so much. It just looks like you're on a different level. And for a minute there, the Niners looked like they were maybe a team that could match them. And again, it's the NFL. There's parity. There's times where some team just shows play and is ready to dominate. You look at that Bills game against the Dolphins. I'm not really sure what happened there. I'm interested to see what the matchup brings here in a couple weeks. But ultimately, I mean, they're playing just at a higher tempo than everyone else, it seems like. Is that they just go in there and it's not just, to win the game. That's what Mike McDaniels ultimately gives a shit about. is winning a game. Every coach in the NFL will tell you that. I don't care how pretty it is, but he's also in there and he's like, I want to run the most efficient system, and I'm not going to let off the just let my guys just coast for half a game because we're up. It's like Belichick back in the day, right? 3 points on team, they 2 to 3, and they'll still be trying to score into the fourth quarter because he's like, why would I stop? That's the reality. Why should I take my team off the field? Why should I let them stop executing? The more practice you have, the better it is. Until it's very late and you just go time for the backups to go in. Why wouldn't you just keep trying to score points? There's this weird thing in the NFL where people just go, that's good enough. And if there's one thing we've learned through the years in the upsets, if you're Brandon Staley, there's never enough points you can score.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you shouldn't be a goal to score a touchdown, or how explosive or how much time you use. I mean, if you're scoring points, you're scoring points, and just keeping that tempo game has been amazing. And it's the most honestly, it's the most fun team to just watch week in, week out. I've seen in a long time. It's just an NFL fan.
Oh, I 100% agree. If there was a more differentiated schedule where not every game was on Sunday, like this is a team where you would tune in on a Tuesday afternoon to watch. It's just, kind of like talking about league pass teams for the NBA, like teams you have to watch league pass to see, and that would be a team. So just, piqued my interest a little bit. I think the most fun offense I've seen since the Colts, at least on a consistent basis, and yes, the Patriots that one year, but just a lot of fun to watch. The Colts. Speaking of the Colts lose to the Jaguars, 37-20. Minshew mania might be over. There was no Anthony Richardson. He threw 3 picks, but Trevor Lawrence played well. And ETN had 2 touchdowns as well too. So pretty good for them to keep on this good track. They started off the year kind of slow, but now they're up to 4-2, and it looks like the AFC South is going to be pretty winnable for them. Yes, they'll have the Texans to get through, but the Jaguars are a couple steps ahead in terms of the rebuild than the Texans are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Jaguars, it's their division to lose. Like you said, I mean, I expected the Jaguars good, not great, and they haven't been great by any means. Gosh, you want to talk about the Colts, they've performed at times, a lot of the key pieces from the years before, the defense hasn't really stepped up. The run game has been very spotty. And again, it just feels like Anthony Richardson was really their whole offense, just him trying to make things happen. And, I'm sick of just watching all these NFL teams. They're so just bereft of talent or just proper game planning. The whole game plan seems to be, let's just wing it until he fixes it out. We're just going to let him just ad lib almost every play. That just can't be how you run an NFL offense. There's got to be 32 minds out there in the world that can run a competent NFL offense that has sound, fundamentals and just knows how to, have a working offense. Because I'm starting to get sick as somebody who watches the NFL. With all the talent that's in the NFL, just barely be able to put something that looks functioning. Looks like there's a legit actual game plan, execution, or adjustments to it when it doesn't work. I'm just sick of it looking like somebody just went, we're overmatched and we're just going to try to make something happen. I'm sick of that just being pretty much for teams. Work, adjust. And scheming seem to have just gone by the wayside a lot of times in the NFL. And it's something that is really unfortunate because, and that's one of the reasons I love the Dolphins, is because it seems like, they have great talents. They've great, they're scheming, they're game planning, they're figuring things out, and they take advantage of teams. Enough teams don't do that, and I feel bad for the Colts because Anthony Richardson's now out for the season. But I mean, to be honest, the Colts are they're at a crossroads where I hope Anthony Richardson continues to play well. He looked well, but I mean, they got to get the offensive line. They got to shore that up because it does not look great. And honestly, can we get the man a true number one receiver? I think that should be the number one thing if you're a Colts fan is get Anthony Richardson a real. I mean, obviously you signed Jonathan Taylor to a long-term extension. That's good that you gave him some money. We'll see, how long it takes him to get kind of back into playing mode. But ultimately, they need some weapons for their young quarterback. And then the team can, honestly, I'll be much more confident. But right now, they just do not look like they can make something happen.
I'm with you. I think they're going to need to rethink what they're doing with the front office. Obviously, it took Jonathan Taylor a little bit of time to get back on the field, and that hurts when you have a young quarterback trying to get better. So they're going to have to get a better wide receiver, like you said, and get things a little bit figured out. But they are in play for next year for sure. But we mentioned the Texans. The Texans beat the Saints 20-13. C.J. Stroud still looks good through his first pick. Ended up being a net positive for the Texans as they recovered a fumble afterwards, and he just seems to keep on playing well no matter what happens. The Saints, we talked about, for me, that I thought like having all their players together would be good and like they could start winning some games. But at the end of the day, Derek Carr didn't have his best game. He threw for a lot of yards, but not the most efficient game. And afterwards, he said that like this is no excuse. My shoulder injury is no excuse to not play well. And he is right. This is a game that they probably should have won. The NFC South is still very much going to be probably run through them, but one you would have liked to have. But for the Texans, what an exciting, I guess, win for this team when you have C.J. Stroud up and coming. Will Anderson played well in this game. It validates that trade they made where they gave up their first-round pick next year. They still have the Browns one, but for Will Anderson, and Will Anderson plays well, C.J. Stroud's playing well, D'Amico Ryans is doing a fantastic job.
No, absolutely. And again, it made sense with Texans because, they got their quarterback. They were smart there. And then they saw a plus value and they traded back up to 6 overall. They didn't trade away talent on their team. It was a very different situation than it was with the Panthers, obviously. And because of that Deshaun Watson trade, they still have that Browns pick. So, it's different when you have a plethora of picks. You can take some more risks, and, it's really worked out for them with Will Anderson. I'm not Bryce Young, but C.J. Stroud has looked great. Honestly, he's looked way better than Young has so far. Again, if you're an Ohio State fan, you sit there and just go, why the hell wasn't C.J. Stroud this good in college with us? Like, they had one game against Georgia. Is it just they were just afraid of getting him hurt? Is that the real reason? Like, because this guy has displayed traits and just the ability to be a winner and the ability to really elevate a team that has so many problems that it's amazing. It honestly is. C.J. Stroud. And if you're the Houston Texans, like, congratulations. I don't want to say you're out of the woods, but man, it's the first time you can feel like you've had hope in probably, I'd say, since prime J.J. Watt, man. It's really it. I mean, that defense back then was absolutely great. It was elite, and that was how they could win. And then Deshaun Watson came in, and they had one or two good years, but then after that, Bill O'Brien couldn't compete, and then all the Deshaun Watson scandal. One year after another, where it's just been a slog. So, I feel good when NFL fan bases get out of the gutter, honestly. Because, as a Bengals fan, we've been there. We've been there for a long time. So it's good to watch a franchise that's been beat up on to actually, get something right and the things to go better than, I never hope for teams, unless you're the Pittsburgh Steelers or Cleveland Browns, to really just go bad. I don't hope your team, completely sucks. The Texans did their time in a story, and they've now come out on the other side. And as long as they make, the next couple drafts work and they do some smart decisions as a front office, again, they're ahead of schedule, and it's a great place to be if you're a Houston Texans fan. Saints, ultimately, it's a winnable game you missed out on. You're going to want this one back. The NFC South is winnable, but again, you're better than the other teams in your division. But if you keep losing games like this, you're going to sit there at the end of the season and be like, man, I can't believe the Falcons beat us the division title. I can't believe Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay Buccaneers outperformed and were able to just sneak in there and be the best team. Like, we had a golden opportunity, and they're going to want this one back.
With you on that, Cease, and I can tell you from experience watching Ohio State the last several years, C.J. Stroud was very good, but It was almost like having a Ferrari and keeping it in the garage all year. Like they have the wide receivers. We've talked about that over the last several years, and obviously Chris Olave playing on the other side in this game, one of his best receivers. They had a nice jersey swap after the game, but they sometimes don't open up the offense for C.J. Stroud, and that's what really did them in when they're playing teams like Michigan. Even in the first quarter, second quarter, let him. You have a Heisman Trophy worthy quarterback, and you don't let him throw the ball downfield. That's just it's frustrating, very frustrating for fans. And then they opened up the playbook against Georgia, and look what happened. They were right there in the thick of it, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. gets knocked out with a concussion and maybe changes the game. So very frustrating from that perspective, but CJ Stroud is doing what I think we thought he would do once he got into the NFL, just maybe not with the Texans and their offensive line issues. So very happy for him and the Texans moving forward in that AFC South. Moving on to the Jacoby Myers Bowl, the revenge game, the one that he messed up last year as a member of the Patriots, now is on the Raiders. The Raiders win 21-17. Jimmy Garoppolo has a back injury. He has to go to the hospital. Looks like it's not going to be too serious, but Brian Hoyer comes in. So we have a pair of former Patriots going and winning this game 21-17. Mac Jones still looks pretty bad. There's no solution on the roster. They're pretty much tanking at this point. We'll see if they're just going to take Caleb Williams or what happens with that. But also, after the game, we had guys like, I think, Adam Butler, the defensive lineman for the Raiders, who formerly played for the Patriots, saying he really didn't have much respect for Bill Belichick because he didn't even say hi to him after the game after he played there for 4 years. So this is like a big Patriots versus former Patriots game, big mess. Overall, one game, I think we can say that it ended up being close, but man, I don't like watching these teams, Cease. Like I think the Raiders are 3-3 and they still stink, and the Patriots obviously stink.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Raiders are becoming like the little Patriots team that could. Um, I would have never sat here and been like, yeah, I think Josh McDaniels is going to lead the Las Vegas Raiders and they're going to do better than Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Would have never thought that going into the season. But I mean, Bill Belichick's offense is it's just it doesn't exist right now. Mac Jones makes these just horrible decisions just there and just he'll make one good throw, and then next thing you know he'll be back to just leading his receiver pick six. It's just so obvious sometimes. It's weird. It's kind of like some of the knocks people have had on Jared Goff, but Jared Goff has actually performed at a high level at points. Is this you get every play? It seems like you don't know what you're going to get out of the guy, and I mean that's huge. He has made some great throws. You watch it sometimes, you're like, all right, Mac Jones can play, and then next play you're just like, this guy can't take care of the football to save his life. So Patriots are in disarray. Raiders are still not a good team in the NFL. They don't really. I don't think they have really any playoff hopes. But they've beaten two other teams that are just absolutely looking helpless right now. Green Bay last week, and then the Patriots this week. It looks like the Patriots have just given up. And, if that's part of the Bill Belichick get Caleb Williams plan, that's fine. But ultimately, the question then becomes, will the Patriots actually take Caleb Williams? Will Bill Belichick outthink himself, find some stupid problem, and just decide, no, I don't need this quarterback to win? Because ultimately, I think Bill Belichick's tried to lean on a lot of older veteran players for a long time now and just trying to outthink everybody instead of just adapting to what is and what is, valuable and clear in the NFL. And it's weird because it seems to be a regression because, in the late 2000s, just pretty much until, it just became the Julian Edelman's show with Tom Brady, they had good receivers and they had Gronk and they had people that, an offense that was really good. And, Tom Brady was there, obviously, we all know that. But just the leap off of, obviously you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, but you just don't have a structurally sound offense anymore. I can't think that was just Josh McDaniels because they did just fine without him. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Josh McDaniels is the only one that knew how to coach offense on that entire team. Bill O'Brien has been worthless as their OC so far. Maybe it's time for him to go back to Alabama once again. But yeah, it's it's an absolute mess right now. If you're the New England Patriots, if you're, I'm glad some of those players kind of got one on Bill Belichick. I feel like what I've heard a lot of the relationships Bill Belichick has with his players is not good, and basically you're all replaceable, and I'm the one that's the genius here. Um, so it is weird that Bill Belichick is a lot of this stuff slowly comes out about Patriots players, and you got to start asking. I mean, how big is the issue with Bill Belichick? I mean, ultimately, I'm not talking this year. Even if they have a bad year, but I mean, how many more seasons of if you keep getting star play and you keep getting Bill kind of refusing to adapt? How much longer is Robert Kraft honestly going to give this? Because ultimately he wants to win football games. Bill Belichick obviously has bought a lot of credit, and he's been a great NFL coach for a very long time. But I mean, when does the Rumble have? Hey, man, maybe it's time to retire, or give some power to somebody else in the organization to do certain things. Because I don't know if it's necessarily Bill Belichick anymore. I just think other people have assistants from GM, a real offensive staff. And Bill Belichick just seems like he just concentrates power with himself, just believing he can do it and no one else can. And the team is just suffering. He can't delegate anything.
I think this is a case of Bill Belichick, the GM, letting down Bill Belichick, the head coach. You can't go, excuse me, can't go into a season with Mac Jones as your quarterback and feel like this is like great. And you can't go draft him and feel like it's great drafting someone that kind of fell for a reason. And the whole reports of, the 49ers were going to take. No, they weren't. All right. And if they were, Kyle Shanahan has the same problem we talked about before where they think they can win with any quarterback in the league, and it's not true. So at the end of the day, you have to go acquire good players. It can't just be about a system. It can't be, hey, we can find a guy in the 6th round who's going to be a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback. That doesn't happen all the time. That is rare. It does not happen. So it's a lot more about the Jimmies and the Joes and the X's and the O's. It's an old saying, but reports are they might be firing him this year. Robert Kraft's getting frustrated. And if you look at Bill Belichick's career record as an NFL head coach before Tom Brady, after Tom Brady, just without Tom Brady in total, it's not very good. And I think there's still a lot of credit to be had for Bill Belichick for those years, what he did, and being the greatest head coach in NFL history. But at a certain point, you got to make a change, and I think Robert Kraft might be at that point.
That's crazy. And this is the most head scratching thing about this, right? And maybe it's an aberration, it's an outlier compared to all the other Brady-less seasons. But I mean, the Matt Castle New England Patriots year, we all remember it, and it just seems like the absolute craziest thing ever. I don't understand how suddenly, I think it is drafting, like you said, is a big part of it. But just the offense, just the general ability to do things. I mean, Bill Belichick and that staff won, what was it, 10 games with Matt Castle?
11 games, yeah. I think 10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, because Tom Brady went down the first game like a quarter in. So, and they had a horrible start with Matt Castle. They then just started winning the hell out of games. Obviously, that was the roster that went 8-1. It's a little different, but still, the offense goes through the quarterback, and they made Matt Castle millions of dollars that year. So the idea that they could have all that and just have such a clear ability, that's what we all thought, Bill Belichick was the genius, not Tom Brady, is because the Matt Castle year just seemed so unreal and just seemed like it was such a great accomplishment for Bill Belichick and his staff. Now, I don't know, again, was it Bill Belichick at all? Was it Josh McDaniels? Was it, Bill O'Brien? Who on the Patriots staff was the one doing this? Because all these guys have left Bill Belichick and not been able to do anything. So maybe it's just a flash in the pan. Maybe it was all luck. But it is weird to see Bill Belichick just not be able to coach an offense or really get the right coaching staff together to work under him. Considering that, it'd be one thing if, every time Tom Brady was out, they lost games. But they were winning games without Tom Brady, with backups consistently year in and year out. And now magically now with Mac Jones, they can't do shit. I mean, there was a time where we thought, Tom Brady goes out, Garoppolo's their quarterback. They can make the playoffs and be a Super Bowl contender with Jimmy Garoppolo, we thought. So it's it's weird how the times have changed, and it's weird where Bill Belichick's career is at. If he gets fired after this year, that is one of the it seems to be that way a lot of times, right? With legends, it doesn't end the way you hope. It's not the retire. You have this great retire from the sunset. A lot of these guys have kind of this Montana had the same thing. Brett Favre. These guys kind of end up leaving or something happens, some kind of fallout. Aaron Rodgers, where things just don't end in a happy ending for him, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens with Belichick. Again, it'll be weird if Bill Belichick's not coaching the Patriots next year.
It will definitely feel weird. We'll see what happens with that. We're going to be tracking that and the draft and everything else going on with this whole organization because, you're right. If they do get the first pick, do they even take Caleb Williams? It's like, I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but it's definitely the projected pick and just a whole mess to figure out up there. All right, so the Los Angeles Rams beat the Arizona Cardinals 26-9. I won't spend too much time on this one, Cease. We kind of expected it. The only thing I'll say is the Cardinals, I guess, failed to move the chains. They didn't have James Conner on this one. That really hurt them. And then for the Rams, they have Kyron Williams get hurt. They have Rodney Rivers get hurt. So now, if you're a fantasy player, you're probably picking up Zach Evans. Darrell Henderson got re-signed. It's, the running back situation could be a mess, but the Rams will be fine overall.
Yeah, I think the Rams will be fine because I think they're just trying to find a running back to plug back there. Because honestly, they have a great set of receivers, it seems like now. With Cooper Kupp back in there, he played excellent in this game. Puka Nacua is still there. There's Tutu Atwell involved as well. So, I think this team and, Matt Stafford, he stays healthy enough. They can do some stuff. Ultimately, protection's a little spotty at times, which is something to worry about if you're a Rams fan. You're one of the 5 of them. But, the Arizona Cardinals are not a good team. Their biggest cog has been James Conner, who, to this day, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you should just sit there and I can't believe we let James Conner walk away for really not that much money in Arizona. And, we drafted another running back who is yet to do anything. So, yeah, it's kind of James Conner makes that thing run, and he's been the point of emphasis for multiple years because they haven't had any other talent. And that guy has been a grader for the NFL. A heck of a career so far for him, being someone who really wasn't expected to do anything more than just be a Le'Veon Bell replacement while the dispute happened and no one expected anything, and just being like, oh, maybe it's all a system thing, to just really just being a guy who runs hard, is all every single down. And I respect the hell out of James Conner for that. And he really is what they have on offense until Kyler Murray gets back, if they even decide they're going to let him take the field again. There's really no way through it, especially without James Conner.
Yeah, definitely on that point, I'm definitely respect James Conner even from his Pitt days, University of Pitt, with the torn ACLs, the beating cancers. He's just a terrific human being and a guy who's fought hard for everything he's gotten. And it does show the value of maybe at the running back position, maybe just certain players at the running back position, however you want to view it. Sometimes when you lose guys like that, it does affect the whole team, and that definitely did for the Cardinals. For them, they do have Kyler Murray coming back, at least starting the practice window. Wouldn't you know, it was a day after Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3's open beta ended. He goes back to practice. A lot of conspiracies there, but he's going to be coming back. So we'll see what they do. There's no incentive to really play him. You can kind of just go into next season and maybe draft Caleb Williams. So we'll have to see how they do that whole situation. The Jets beat the Eagles kind of surprisingly. Cease. They win 20-14. Now, this is a lot of credit to the Jets defense, but I will just say, Cease, this was Jalen Hurts' really bad game that kind of did him in here. 3 interceptions. He has 7 interceptions on the season. Now, the Eagles are 5-1, but he's got 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the year. He's got to start playing better. I'm not saying he's a one-year wonder. I'm not saying that at all, but if they're going to go back to the Super Bowl, possibly win the Super Bowl, he has to start playing better. He can't have games like that where he's going to turn the ball over that many times.
Right. And I think that's something with Jalen Hurts that, that was kind of one of the big knocks on his game going into, though, right? was ultimately his ability to not turn the ball over and protect the football. I think that was a big thing. His accuracy, his decision making. Eagles really last year played to all of his strengths very well, and Jonathan Gannon was really able to, or not. Was it Jonathan Gannon was their defensive coordinator, right? Is Shane Steichen was their no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Shane. I'm right. Okay, cool. I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to make sure. Steichen was there, and they really down on Hurts's turnovers. And I mean, I think it was huge. That was a big thing the year before as well. As Jalen Hurts has an arm. We know that. He has legs. He can make things happen. But you can't keep throwing staring down guys and throwing into double coverage. It's not going to work. He was able to use his legs more. The offense was able to just get the ground game going with Jalen Hurts more last year, and then that opened up so much stuff on the big play on the back end. And we still see those with AJ Brown. We still see him with Devontae Smith. But Jalen Hurts has got to be. Maybe it's part of it is he has to use his legs. He has to keep beating teams for yards, 10 yards, 20 yards here to really make them truly focus only on him. Again, the Jets are a really good defense. They played really well. I mean, and the idea that they stayed motivated to play so well despite Aaron Rodgers' injury in the first drive, first game, is a hat. It's hats off to Saleh there as well. They've played extremely well. Zach Wilson is still he's played better than just the worst thing we've ever seen. He's gotten better, but he's still not great. Brees Hall's looked well at times, but yeah, Jalen Hurts lost this game for the Eagles. There's really no way to sugarcoat that in any way. Eagles, there were plenty of opportunities, that he should have just not forced the ball so much. I think he just got frustrated with how well the Jets had played and wanted to make some things happen instead of just ultimately protecting the football, which, if he had just done that, honestly, it would have been very hard for the Jets to drive down the entire field and score.
Absolutely, and I think the thing for the Jets, they mentioned that they've played so many elite quarterbacks already, and they've done well against all of them. All but Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott had a pretty good game against them, but they have, and the defense has played well, set them up for a possible return to maybe playoff talk. And now we have Aaron Rodgers and his, what is science? I'm going to beat science. Science sucks, whatever. Up in there, because science is a liar sometimes. But if you watch It's Always Sunny, but that's just, we'll see what happens there with Aaron Rodgers and his conspiracy theories. But let's move on, Cease, to a battle of former number one overall picks. We have Jared Goff versus Baker Mayfield. Jared Goff wins this one. The Lions win 20-6. Just consistent play over the course of the game gets them that way. 353 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jared Goff. Baker Mayfield kind of struggles in this one. At the end of the day, I don't have any. Baker struggled. Buccaneers, they're still doing better than I expected this year. And the Lions, let's just talk about them. They're elite. They're an elite team in the NFL. Who would have thought we're talking about the Lions as one of the best teams in the NFL?
It's great. I mean, Dan Campbell, not going to say he's the best guy at scheming or anything like that, but he's a hell of a motivator. And you've got great guys, and you honestly, one of the most underrated things in the NFL is building a great staff around you. Bill Belichick clearly has not been able to do that. Kyle Shanahan for years has had assistant after assistant come out of there and just be absolutely a great NFL head coach. So it looks like Dan Campbell, he comes from the Sean Payton cloth. There have been a lot of guys that have worked under Sean Payton. Obviously it's not a great time with the Broncos right now for him, but I mean, he's able to put together a great staff from the connections he has. And I think that's truly shown. I think he's found a great offensive coordinator that's really taken the Lions to the next level. Teams should be interested in him in the next head coaching cycle. Defense has key players at the right positions. They're not great by any means, but they make key plays. They've got Aiden Hutchinson. They've got Brian Branch, who's played really well. They got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They've just got guys positions they need in order to win football games on that end. And the offense is great. You got to think no Jahmyr Gibbs in this one. Dave Montgomery gets hurt, at the midway point, it seems. And it didn't phase them at all. They still, heck of a lot of yards for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams gets his first touchdown of this year. He's back in. That's exciting to see him get involved. Sam Laporta's there. Now that Jameson Williams is back, there's no reason to doubt this offense. They will be good. They have a strong offensive line. Jared Goff has cut down on the mistakes this year that we saw in the last couple years and with the Rams later on. Um, we got everything for a good team that not just going to win the NFC North at this point. I think it's kind of a done deal if you're an NFC North team to just say the Lions have it at this point. I just don't see anybody else. The rest of them should probably just be tanking for better draft picks. We're talking about a team that can beat some NFC. Will they? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And I'm honestly looking forward to the NFC playoffs this year because there are some really good teams, some new teams that are kind of up and coming, and I can't wait to see what happens. I'm excited for the Detroit Lions, baby.
I am as well. I mean, we got the teams we thought that would be good: the Eagles, 49ers, the Cowboys. Then we have the Lions, who we thought would be good, but like better than expected. We have some other teams in the NFC West, like the Rams, who are stepping up and better than we thought they would be this year. So it is going to be more exciting than we thought, Cease. And I'm excited for the Lions too. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But that also includes maybe teams last year that were kind of mediocre that made the playoffs, who are now not going to make the playoffs. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about the Giants and Bills on Sunday Night Football because that's just the perfect segue right there. The Giants have Tyrod Taylor starting this game on Sunday Night Football in place of Daniel Jones, who's hurt. And then we have them going up with the lead 6-0 at the end of the first half. But at the end of the first half, they have a chance to extend the lead. And Tyrod Taylor decides to audible to a run play, and they get tackled short of the goal line. The clock ticks out. They lose a chance to add on to the lead, which obviously has a big effect at the end of the game. Now, Brian Daboll chewed his butt out when they were on the sideline. That is going to be something that, like, a lot of players are not going to like. Like, hey, you can do that in private. You do not do that to players in public. That's something they made a point on the broadcast about. But Tyrod should have known not to switch to a run play in that situation. They go, play the second half, still have a lead, and then the fourth quarter, the Bills score 14 points. Stephon Diggs gets going and everything. And they have a chance to go down and win the game in the end. They get one pass interference call, and then in the second time they go for it, this last play of the game, Darren Waller's open in the end zone. It looked like a pretty bad PI with the guy pulling at his collar and didn't get called. And there's a lot of complaints on this one. End of the day, though, with all the drama that happened within the game, with Brian Daboll facing his former team and everything else, the Bills win 14-9. In a week of upsets, I think you have to take that if you're Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, people get mad that Brian Dable lost his cool on Tyrod Taylor. I mean, I'd have no problem with it when it's something that egregious, that big. Tyrod Taylor's not a rookie quarterback, right? Tyrod Taylor's been in the league a while. He should know situational football. I don't know, Dable, maybe he got the brunt of it. I think Dable was also upset with the offensive staff a lot. I think, he was kind of mad that was even an option for that check to be done at that point. I think he was just trying to figure out who like allowed this check, basically. Who was like told Tyrod to be okay to check into this at this time. Just trying to figure out who was the one behind this that like installed this, thought that this could ever be something we would do. So I think Brian Daboll was super frustrated with Tyrod Taylor. I think he was just frustrated with everything because you got to think you're up 6-0 on the Buffalo Bills. You're supposed to be destroyed by this. They're winning. They haven't. And, every point is important in any NFL game, especially one like this. Where you're Brian Dable, and honestly, you've done great with this team, but the limitations of it. You got a backup quarterback in. You've got the same offensive challenges you've had. You have Quan, who's back, but, he's not solid right now. He's not 100%. And, I am 100% okay with Brian Dable doing that. If anything, it feels better than somebody just going in the back and screaming at me. There's something smaller, sure, but I mean that's a huge emotional change. That's a huge swing of a momentum. And that's something that if I was the head coach too, I would feel the exact same way. That being said, the Giants lose this game and they had no business being in it. But sure, the Bills will take it. They got that win, but what the hell? Ultimately. Bills team, I know they're hurt. A lot of those injuries really were on the defensive side of the ball, but that wasn't the problem. Just again, like there are some teams this year. Honestly, all the top AFC teams, Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs, their offenses have just been the slowest, most inconsistent things I think I've seen. It's weird, and it's weird for it to be all of them as well. We've got these teams that are everyone like you could find, probably dozens of people in the media, pretty much almost a consensus. Everyone in the media probably picked one of those three teams to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. Almost, 90% of them probably. And none of them have really looked like they deserve that credit at this point. The Bills have shown flashes, sure, but then they have games like this where they just the offensive rhythm wasn't there. Josh Allen looked like he was just missing targets. The run game was not really, that the run game was honestly the best part of their team. The biggest thing I've noticed with the Bills is I think they've gotten better at running the ball themselves, but I feel like the passing game is taking a step back. And the real reason is just Josh Allen not making the plays he's used to making. And then two, the Buffalo Bills do not seem to address the problem that you can just run on them. You can control the clock. You can just bully them on the offensive line. It's what the Bengals did in that playoff game last year, and that seems to be what's happening. Is Von Miller's back, sure, and that's good, but you can just the front four. If you're trying to run the ball down the throat, you can do that with Buffalo, and that's not a formula for success. That's a huge glaring weakness for a team that wants to score a lot of points. Keeping you off the field, keeping you out of rhythm. The Giants accomplished that, and that's a huge blueprint going forward to beat the Buffalo Bills, right? You don't need to be the better team necessarily. All you got to do is capitalize on Josh Allen's mistakes, limit their opportunities to score, and all you got to do is just get in the right situation and control the football.
Yeah, it is nice that some other teams might be able to use that blueprint against the Bills, including the Bengals later on, as we talked about playing them in a couple of weeks here. I think Brian Dable is just frustrated with everything. He's the head coach of the Giants. He somehow brought back Daniel Jones. I don't know if he was involved in that decision, how much he was involved, but Daniel Jones is your quarterback. That's probably not very good, and you're 1-5. Can you tank? Can you? I don't know. Like Daniel Jones is going to come back, and then are you going to play him? What's going to happen here? So, a lot to be frustrated by if you are Brian Dable. This is maybe your one shot to be a head coach in the NFL. First year, great. Second year, not going so hot. And at the end of the day, if he gets fired after year two because they regressed, it may or may not be his fault. And ultimately, he's responsible for it, but it may not be his fault, and that's what kind of stinks. All right, Monday Night Football sees the Cowboys beat the Chargers 20-17. Dak Prescott plays pretty well. CeeDee Lamb plays as well. Going into the fourth quarter, the Cowboys take a 20-17 lead, and then the Chargers, Justin Herbert. We've seen this in the past. The collapse kind of happens. It's going to start to be a narrative with him. He's still a very talented quarterback. He throws a pick to Stephon Gilmore. Their first-round pick, Quentin Johnston, is getting more playing time now that Mike Williams is out for the season. He didn't really fight for the ball, so it's a whole thing. Cowboys needed to bounce back and get a win after their bad performance last week against the 49ers. And on top of it all, we might have an NFL plant because there was a lady who was just going nuts with her reactions all over social media on Monday Night Football, finding out that, hey, she's also a Vikings fan and people are ripping her to shreds. Cecil, I don't care if you're a fan of multiple teams. We both like cheer for the Bengals. We also cheer for some other teams. Just the weirdest behavior ever to be obsessed about if this woman cheers for more than one team and all that stuff. Let people live. Let people cheer for who they want to cheer for. Why does it bug people so much? I just never understood this.
Right, and again, I mean, they're opposite conferences. They're across the United States from each other. I mean, it's very common if you're an NFL fan to have a team you also kind of root for in the other conference. A team that you're like, they never play each other. The only time it's really ever going to matter is the Super Bowl. That's a very normal thing to have. I don't, let's stop gatekeeping who you can like and who you can't. I'm totally fine. We can gatekeep if you like somebody's arch rival. That doesn't make any sense. Are you really a fan of either? Yeah. But two teams that are completely unrelated to each other have no beef, have no real rivalry of any kind. There's really no connection between the two of them that I can even think of. So who cares? They're completely separate. I mean, she had some crazy reactions. Is she an NFL plant? Who knows? Goodell just makes more and more money. 3 more years, he's gonna make $700 by the time he's done. I don't know. Maybe he's just we boo him. He keeps making money, and at this point, to the game again, Chargers just very unimpressive in every way. They're very below expectation, I should say, because I don't think they're a bad team. I think they're a team. They're a team that, on paper, it's like they seem sexy, right? If we're, for lack of a better word, it got kind of that. Oh, we've got this big armed quarterback. He's young. He puts up all these stats. He's great. We got Keenan Allen. We got Austin Eckler. We've got a Bosa on our defensive line. We got Khalil Mack. And we got some, all these people are like, oh, wow, look at these stars. That's awesome. Like, this Chargers team's going to be so good. And then they get on the field and you're just like, all right, this is a very boring, average game again. And you're not really wowing me with anything. You're just kind of there. And it seems like, it's starting to become Justin Herbert's career is, wow, this guy's really talented. But I don't actually see it when it's time they ask. Like, he doesn't have it, it seems like, when they need to have it, kind of deal. But, it's great. I mean, he looks great in the first quarter. He looks great, when they're up on a big lead. He looks like a good guy. But when the chips are down, like, I need to see more from this guy to be like, all right, this is the clutch time. This is where he puts together all those, immense talents, physical traits, and is able to just do things that else can. And he does them throughout games. But when we need it most, it suddenly just doesn't happen. I don't know what that is. We talk about this, we scout prospects, we talk about them, we watch tape, and it's the clutch gene, right? It's something that's not quantifiable. It's an intangible. It's something to know, is Justin Herbert that fighter? Does he have that true fight? And I think that was a big thing with his draft profile too, is, he went to Oregon. Oregon really was irrelevant. He was great. But, I mean, where's Oregon in all this? Oregon's not a national champion. They're not in that conversation, really. He's there. He's great. That's the Justin Herbert brand is, wow, this guy's super talented, but they don't actually win championships. And, that's great. And I like Justin Herbert. I hope he has a great NFL career, but the narrative's just going to start being it's like the John Elway narrative was for a long time before he won the Super Bowls, right? John Elway is an immense talent, but who cares? Like, you don't win championships in the NFL. No one cares how talented you were. It's about who are the guys that gritted out, who are the guys that made these amazing plays. John Elway put that drive up at the end of the career that everyone knows, and the Cleveland Browns fans unfortunately know much even more. But that's those kind of clutch moments that define an NFL career. Everyone expects you to be good. You're a franchise NFL quarterback. Your expectation is to be great on Sundays. But really what separates you and makes you memorable and somebody that has a Hall of Fame career is when you can make those key plays in those key moments in games. And I just haven't seen it from Justin Herbert in a while.
I'm with you, Cease. It's more about winning than people want to say. Yes, wins aren't a quarterback stat, but when you're the one making the mistakes at the end of the game, that kind of hinders your chance to win. And, I hate the whole John Elway thing because it makes people think that he's a better quarterback than Dan Marino. And those people can just go shove off because Dan Marino would ice games as much as he could, just, talent around him type of thing. So that's all well and good for Week 6. Let's move on to Week 7, Cease. The Thursday night game is a little bit of an interesting matchup here. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the New Orleans Saints. This line has moved a little bit. It is currently the Saints favored by 1 point.
Is Trevor Lawrence going to play? What is the current update?
I think so.
We think so. This is a weird one. This is a avoid the gambling tables type of pick because how healthy are the if they both start? That being said, I'm going to assume the more talented team wins here. I'm going to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars to upset the Saints at home in a close matchup. I could totally see it going the other way. All I know is this might be a decent under game depending on what the points are, because Thursday night quarterbacks have been practicing as much, they're managing injuries. This might be one of those key times to just go. If I'm going to put money on this game, I'm going to put it on the under.
Yeah, with you on that, Cease. My pick's going to look a little bit weird because I did my picks earlier in the week on the website, and they're doing well this year and everything. But I had the Jaguars with the points back when the points were +3. They're now Saints favored by 3, or Saints favored by 1. That kind of, you wouldn't do that, right? That just doesn't make any sense if you were going to pick them outright. So I'm going to say the Saints will win the game. Jaguars with the points if it's +3. If it's +1, just go with the Saints. But I do think the Saints defense is underrated still. From all those years of Drew Brees' offense, it's just, the Saints defense will just never get the love they deserve. And I do think Derek Carr getting back healthier will be good. And it's a night game in New Orleans. That's always fun, especially in that tough place to play. So the Superdome, I'll go Saints with this one with my amended pick there. Next one up, Cease. Let's go with the Cleveland Browns at the Indianapolis Colts. The Browns are currently favored by 2.5 points. We don't know if Deshaun Watson's playing. Whether that matters or not, I don't know.
I'm going to go the Browns to win and cover with a small spread, because I think the defense for the Browns is going to come to play. I think Minshew's. I love Gardner Minshew, but man, those turnovers were rough last week, and I have a feeling a lot of the same stuff is going to pop up in this Cleveland game. I think the Browns are going to have a lot of short fields, and I don't know if it's necessarily. My pick isn't really based on if Deshaun starts or not, ultimately, because I think Stefanski likes focusing on the run. I think more it's about the field position game and how the defense can dominate the Colts, probably. That is why I give the edge. It really has very little bearing to me if Deshaun Watson's there or not, which shows you how much I care about Deshaun Watson at times.
I'm taking Gardner Minshew to bounce back in this one. I just can't quit Minshew mania. I'm obsessed with Jim Irsay, whether he opens the roof or closes the roof. This team, I think, on paper is good enough to still make the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as the quarterback. Their defense has been good for years. Their offensive line has been good for years. Jonathan Taylor still easing his way back in here. I think it ultimately is a close one. If I can't make my decision up, then give me the team that is at home and is getting points. I will take the Colts in this one, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day. But I believe Gardner Minshew played a bad game last week and can rebound this week.
How do you think the roof is decided? Is it only Ursay's say? Does he have complete authority? Is there a button? Do you think it's a button, or maybe it's a nuclear submarine? Like two keys have to be turned, or how do you think?
I think it's just one big button, and they just cover it. They do one of the cover things, like Men in Black. Don't press the red button. I could see him trying to press it during the game, though, like him getting obsessed with the weather or something, and you're not supposed to do that anymore. Back in the old baseball days, you could close the roof during the game if it started raining. You're not supposed to do that at all. So that's just how I see it.
I think it should. I think it should be. I think it's two keys. I think Ursay's got a key, but because he's a wild card, he knows it's going in. He knows himself a little bit. The head of facilities at the stadium, or someone else has got the other key, and they got to turn them simultaneously, open the roof together.
Okay. That would be funny. It would be funny if they had to close the roof and they couldn't find Jim Irsay because he's off on his bender or whatever. That'd be a fun story to have. Fun movie. We should write that down for a movie idea. They have to have the Super Bowl in Indianapolis, and they can't find the key to close the roof, so they got to play a cold weather Super Bowl. That'd be fun. Let's move on to the Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cease. The line has stayed pretty much the same all week. It is the Buccaneers favored by 2.5.
I'm gonna say the winning cover. I think they've performed above expectations. I think that roster is still very solid. I think the defense has played well up to this point, and I think Mayfield, it's going to be if some of those big shots he takes lands with those big time receivers. I know the Buccaneers have had a back and forth relationship with the Falcons. Winning games, playing close games against them. I can't trust the Falcons on anything. Honestly, I can't trust them. I don't trust Arthur Smith. I got to go with the Baker Mayfield. I think he gets a couple shots in there, and that's the momentum change in the game. So, Bucks win and cover.
I have the same thing, kind of like you said. Don't trust the Falcons' offense and Desmond Ritter as much as I do Baker Mayfield and this Bucks offense. Yes, they had a bad game, but it was against the Lions, who are a very good team. We just mentioned. I think they get back on track. I think Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have a big game, and they win and cover. So we're on the same page there, Cease. Next one up, we have the Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. The Bills are favored by 8.5 on the road.
Man, they are really afraid of some of those Patriots Bills games of years past. And this is a weird crossroads to be at. I guess the Bills will get back on track. Honestly, I mean the Giants game plan perfectly, and the Bills just being open and letting that happen 2 weeks in a row. And so I feel like the Patriots' offensive line and running game isn't as good as the Giants and Saquon are, and I think it's just they got in a weird spot, right? I think they didn't expect the Giants to come out with the fight with a backup quarterback. I think they may have gotten too involved themselves. This is a divisional game. I think this was the wake up call. I think the film that they've been watching the last couple of days has not been pretty. I don't think it's been a very nice talk by any means by the coach. At least I'd hope Sean McDermott is that's how he's going about it. Because if I'm Sean McDermott, I'm almost treating this like a loss. I'm going in there and going, congrats, we got the win. That's what's most important in the NFL. But my God, we probably should have lost that game, honestly. And to lose a game like that to a team like that is unacceptable to me. This should not have been close. And we got our asses kicked basically and dominated for most of that game. And I'm not going to let that happen against the Patriots because the Patriots will attempt to do the same thing, keep away ball. But I just again I don't trust Mac Jones. I think that's a key difference in this. Is Tyrod Taylor will take care of the ball a little better than Mac Jones probably will. So give me the Bills to win and cover.
I'm going the Bills as well to win and cover. I've mentioned how many times I just really don't like Mac Jones as a quarterback. He's got the happy feet going right now. It's something that you really, I guess you could work on fixing during the year, but if you have bad footwork, that's usually an off-season thing you got to fix. I would recommend them change to Bailey Zappi or Malik Cunningham, who they just activated, but they seem to be hesitant to do so. So we'll see if they maybe make a change down the road here. Next one up, we have the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants. Commanders favored by 2.5 on the road. And there, I don't think we have word whether Daniel Jones is playing. I think he's on good track though.
Doesn't matter to me. I like the Commanders to win and cover. I think their hearts out last week. It's kind of an emotional letdown for them. I think you play so hard and you still just can't win it at the very end. I don't know if that's going to build momentum. I think it's going to just make them be a little sadder, honestly. But I think the are putting a decent team right now. I think Sam Howell keeps taking steps forward. I think Brian Robinson's played very well for them so far. I think Logan Thomas, Scary Terry, Josh Doxson. They got so many guys on that team that play and receive the ball decent. And their defense has a lot of good players ultimately. And the Commanders' probably biggest weakness is their secondary. And the Giants have no receivers, so I'm gonna go. The weakness. They play weakness to weakness, and overall, the rest of the talent on the roster, Commanders are just better right now. So, Commanders to win and cover.
I thought you said Josh Doxson for a second, and then I realized you said Jahan Dotson, and I was like, whoa, what a change, man, from going from that one bust to Jahan Dotson, who's seemingly okay right now. So that was a blast from the past real quick. But I have the same pick as you, Commanders to win and cover. I like what you said about their defense. They have some guys who are making impacts that didn't make impacts in the past. We have, like we talked about, Emmanuel Forbes is struggling on the outside, their rookie from this year. But they have some guys who were drafted in the last several years who are playing well. So Chase Young, coming back from that injury, he's been injured a lot of his rookie contract. He's coming back. We have Jamin Davis, the linebacker out of Kentucky, who we kind of knew would take some time to kind of figure out the NFL, but he really is stepping into his role as a linebacker this year and playing very well. He made the biggest play on the pass breakup at the end of the game against the Falcons. He's playing really well too. So because their defense is playing well and because I think their offense can do enough, I think they win and cover on the road against the Giants. We have the Las Vegas Raiders favored by 3 points at the Chicago Bears. Right now, Justin Fields is just doubtful. I expect Tyson Bagent to be the quarterback for the Bears this week.
I do as well. What's the spread currently?
Raiders favored by 3.
Yeah, give me the Raiders to win and cover. I think the Raiders are in that unique position of not being a good NFL team, but put together enough and have key, star-powered players that keep really beat up on the worst teams in the NFL. So they're in that probably right in that average tier, right? Maybe even honestly, the worst average team in the NFL, where they are not good enough to really compete at a high level. And maybe Matt Crosby causes some people some issues on a couple drives every once in a while, but they're not there to compete honestly. And ultimately, they will beat up on bad teams that just in disarray.
Yeah, I'm with
So
you.
win and cover.
I'm with you on that, Cease. I think that's what they are. They're just going to pick off these teams that are just not very good or have backup quarterbacks in, and that's what they would do. I probably, if Justin Fields was healthy, I think they win last week against the Vikings. I think they make that comeback, even though he had some struggles. And I think the Bears probably win this one. But they have Tyson Bagent, who I think can play decently, but just with all the deficiencies this roster has, it's just a little bit too much. So I'm going to say that the Raiders wouldn't cover. The Raiders go to 4-3. And then at that rate, you're thinking like, man, if this team gets like 2 or 3 more of these games, they're in the freaking playoffs. Like, what the heck, man? This is such a weird NFL year that we just weren't kind of expecting. That I don't know what to say. Just crazy. All right, so the next one up, we have the Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 3, Cease.
I think it's a fair line for a good team at home. The biggest thing I'm worried about in this game for the Detroit Lions is weather. You're a dome team. You're going to Baltimore. It's that time of year where the weather's really turned, and what's the weather going to be like there? I don't know for certain. Um, I'm going to go. It's a risky one. I'm going to bet. I think the Lions take that step forward and show how good they really are in this game. They come out with a win and pull off the upset of the Ravens at home.
Ooh, I like it. All right, so I'm going to go with the Lions with the points. Yes, it's only 3, but this is one I'm absolutely torn on. Kind of like you said, it's like the Lions are a good team, but they're going to the Ravens. So I'm going to take Lions with the points, with the Ravens to win. I do like what Lamar Jackson is doing. I think his receivers have let him down. I do think some of the injuries are affecting this team. I do ultimately think they defend their home turf. I think the Lions put up a good fight. Still proving that they're one of the best teams in the NFL this year. But this is like, if they lose this one, it's kind of like, except it's like, oh, okay. I mean, they lost to the Ravens. That makes perfect sense. It's not like it's like a big shock or anything. So Lions with the points, Ravens to win outright. Next one up on Sunday evening game, Cease, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are favored by 3 at home.
I think that's a fair line. I'll go the Rams to win and cover. The biggest thing I'm worried about is, you just never know when the Steelers defense is going to have that game, right? That's the biggest thing to worry about with them is just, are they going to score a touchdown? Are they going to score 14 points off defense? There's a possibility. Matt Stafford is a guy who like getting pressured and can struggle with that at times. So I don't think it's going to eliminate the Rams offense. I think they still have a lot of good pieces. And running back, I don't think is, of all the positions for them to lose a key player at, running back I don't think is the most important to Sean McVay. So I think the Rams will win this game. It'll be close. But, you give me 3 points, I got to go with them. It's just the Steelers, obviously, it's all – if the Steelers defense can score, we're talking about a game. If the Steelers really aren't able to make those turnovers and it's just punts, I don't even though the Rams defense isn't great, the Steelers offense cannot move the ball.
Yeah, I'm going the Rams to win and cover as well. The difference for me here is without Cam Hayward, the Steelers can't stop the run. I think no matter who the running back is, they'll be able to run the football on the Steelers. They could be Daryl Henderson, it could be Zach Evans, or whatever. They could throw in anyone, and I think they'll be able to run. They have a lot better wide receiver play now that they have both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I'm going to go with them. The Steelers off a bye scares me because Mike Tomlin is a good coach, but I think the Rams can get the job done. Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are favored by 8, Cease.
By 8 points. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to win. Um, that's a hard spread. This is a tease down if you're doing parlays, and I wouldn't bet this game straight up with that spread. But I'm going to go Seahawks to win and cover. I'd be more happy if it was just a touchdown because 8 points is always a little scary. The point is it's a divisional game, right? A lot of these divisional games, especially in the NFC West, are always played pretty close. And to say that they're going to win by more than a possession is a hard task. But I think the Seahawks have proven that they can be a good team. I think they're a team that will make the playoffs this year. But again, they're not elite, and I don't think they're above getting into a kind of a dogfight with the Cardinals. So I'd walk out with that spread. But I'm going to, in a vacuum, gun to my head, Seahawks are the more talented team, and I think can cover it, but not super confident in it.
Yeah, that's sort of how I feel. I'm going to go Seahawks to win and cover. I think more so, I think they're probably happy to come back home after that tough game against the Bengals where that tough defense was there. I think they're going to win and cover because of that. Like this will be feel like a little bit of an easier test and can get everyone going again. DK Metcalf I think will have a pretty big game, and I think they win and cover at home. Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 5.5.
I'm going to take the Chiefs to win and cover here. I think it's going to be right around that point. Again, I think the Chiefs win this by about a possession, a touchdown like that. Again, I haven't seen the clutch gene with the Justin Herbert in a while. I think the Chiefs defense is only getting better, and I think that could lead to some struggles with the Chargers offense. It just takes one. I'm not expecting an offensive explosion from the Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, but I think they'll be able to win this game enough, and I just feel like Justin Herbert is just not going to be able to make those key plays when he needs to really get one over on the Chiefs. So Chiefs to win and cover.
Same thing for me. That defense, as you have mentioned in the past, a very, very good one. I think that puts some pressure on the Chargers offense. And, like we said, the Chargers, we just can't necessarily trust them, especially late in games and close games. So I'm going to go Chiefs to win and cover. Green Bay Packers at the Denver Broncos, two teams that maybe we're not looking forward to watching this game. The Packers are favored by 1 on the road.
Yeah, I'm going the Packers to win and cover. I don't like it. The Broncos are just one of the worst teams in the NFL. Not the Packers are good, but I feel like they've gotten more out of Jordan Love than the Broncos have gotten out of Russell Wilson so far. I feel like there's some key players on Green Bay. The altitude, the home field advantage that Denver has worries me. But so far, I just really can't trust the Denver Broncos at all. And it's going to be close. Again, probably a great under game to bet here, depending on what that under comes out to be. But I'm not confident in either of these teams. But I think the Green Bay is being able to get more out of their offense than the Broncos have. And that's why I'm picking them.
I took the Broncos. They're at home. Russell Wilson's been bad, but probably not as bad as Twitter's making him out to be.
Right.
I don't know. I like Sean Payton. Maybe not this year, but I like Sean Payton overall better than LaFleur. So I don't know. Screw it. I went with the home team. So give him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lose-lose no matter what you do. This is not a game to really just throw a lot of money on. It's one of those low confidence games that, unless you're a Green Bay or Denver Broncos fan, I'm staying away from, because most importantly, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see it. I'll see what the highlights are, check in for my fantasy team. That's all I want. I don't care about this game.
Luckily for you, Cease, I checked the TV schedule. The national TV game for us is the Chargers Chiefs, which I prefer. That's a very
Thank
good
you,
good
God.
thank the football gods for that one. All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. Cease, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the best Sunday Night Football matchups, I think, of the year. Two teams we could be seeing play each other in a Super Bowl. At least that's what the odds will say right now. The Eagles are currently favored by 2.5 points.
Yeah, you know what? I'm worried. Philly's a hard place to play. Again, great home field for the Eagles. We got a team in Miami that's playing, and now it's nice, sunny, 80, 90 degrees, and now you're going to, Philly in October, and it's a tough place to play. But ultimately, I don't trust the Eagles and Jalen Hurts right now to really play. They haven't played a complete game yet. The Dolphins, besides that Buffalo game, have played very well. And, this is going to be a great test for the Dolphins. I don't think this is going to be an explosion. Usually I'm very into to Dolphins games and, player props on these games because they've all hit because the Dolphins are just been on a different level most weeks. I don't expect that, but ultimately I just respect what Mike McDaniels has done. I love what the Dolphins have done that, you know, I'm going to pick them for the upset, even though I don't an upset if you look to these two teams. I think the only reason you're doubting the Dolphins at this point is because people are still hyped about the Eagles from the past. And, honestly, that Philly weather with, nice sunny Miami being that transition from one week to the next, I think that can be a tough one. But I think it'll slow the Dolphins down. But I just don't think you can completely stop that train.
I'm going Dolphins as well. I mean, you know me, card carrying member of 2 and 9, basically helped start the whole thing. I mean, at this rate, but I think the loss to the Bills was needed. I think they needed to take a loss there and see how things were going. But the Eagles have also had plenty of problems this year, and that's just not like doesn't even just include the loss to the Jets. Like we had Jason Kelsey like yelling on the sidelines earlier in one of the wins. If you look at their wins, they haven't really beat anyone too great yet. Like Patriots, Vikings, Buccaneers, better than expected, but still not great. Commanders, and then Rams, better than expected. How good are they? We don't really know. They did lose to the Jets on the road. That kind of scares me because now they're going to be more focused. But I would take the Dolphins to beat just about any team right now. I mean, even if they played the Bills again, I would take them. It doesn't look like the weather's going to be too bad in Philadelphia. Give me the Dolphins. Let's see 2-9. Let's see this matchup. I'm really excited for this one, Cease. This is one of the ones where I'm with you. Do not bet. Like I'm very happy to pick the Dolphins. Very happy to talk them up and tell the reasons why I'm picking them. If you are trying to bet this weekend, don't bet on this game. Spread, anything, money line. I would stay away from it. Like you said, player props as well. It just doesn't make too much sense. It's just two evenly matched teams. If the Eagles play their best, they're going to win. If the Dolphins play their best, they're going to win. If they both play their best, then that's where the spread comes in, and you're like, that seems like a pretty close spread. That's why it's there. So definitely agree with
Could
you on
you
that.
argue this is maybe one of the top 5 primetime games of the year?
Yes, I don't think you would necessarily think that coming into the year, but I don't see. I mean, we had the Cowboys and the 49ers, which a lot of hype and didn't end up being that way. We still have the Cowboys and Eagles on Sunday Night Football coming up. We have the Bengals and Browns on Sunday Night Football. But I think all those teams, like we said, kind of struggled. These two teams, the Eagles have had their struggles, but they're still 5-1, and the Dolphins blowout loss to the Bills. But I would say most people think they're probably one of the better teams performing wise this whole year. So yeah.
Would you say, now recency bias, if you were going into week 1 and there was a certain article posted on a certain site that we are a proud, partner and part of, would you rank it over a certain Packers Chiefs game?
I personally would. Yeah.
I think the consensus would be. Do we
I
have a consensus?
I may have yelled at the writer of that article about it, and I may have voiced my displeasure and said that it was a very bad pick. And that writer has since said, well, you said one of the games that I should put on there was the 49ers and Cowboys, and that turned out to be a blowout. So the logic isn't always there. And yeah, I would say that this should have been contention. The 49ers Cowboys should have been in contention. Again, all the ones I listed should be in contention, and that's just the Packers better win that game. Otherwise, there's no reason for the article.
Should we start a counter for how many games that come up in the week is better than probably the Chiefs Packers game?
No, I think that you personally should attack him verbally on Sunday when we see him to watch games.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's your wedding present for me, buddy. You get to verbally attack him. No, I'll give you your wedding present as well, but you can do that too.
I do love verbally berating people. Me and Brian Dable have that in common.
Absolutely. All right, Monday Night Football, probably not going to be a good one. It's the 49ers at the Vikings. Again, if you don't want to watch this one, want to take a game off to watch, hang out with your spouse or something, this might be one to do for Monday Night Football. The 49ers are favored by 7.
Give me the 49ers to win and cover. I think the Vikings are just done. I think they're just over it. I think the 49ers, even with the injuries, are just pissed and are just going to take it out on the Vikings. I think, they kind of sat there after that game and just be like, we just lost a winnable game because some injuries happened, sure, but we stupid decisions. We didn't adjust, and we can make all the excuses in the world. It's time to move on to next week and, get back on track. And this is a get-right game for the 49ers. I see it that way. Give me the 49ers to win and cover all day.
Yeah, 49ers to win and cover for me too. Bounce back, get it all figured out. Kirk Cousins in prime time. Whatever you want to say about this one, it's 49ers all the way. So I would love if we could have better primetime games, but we do have a great Sunday Night Football one, so let's roll with that. Cease, any final thoughts for the week?
No, I mean, my Bengals are off this week, so that'll probably help me with some mental health ultimately. So that's something to look forward to, for all you Cincinnati Bengals fans out there. Enjoy the Sunday of just watching NFL football and just realizing that your teams can't do anything to you this week. They can't do anything. They can't cause you any stress. Obviously they can't bring you much joy either, but ultimately, the stress and the anguish you feel on a week in and week out basis, you take off, relax, and, get started off.
All right. Well, I am going to give my final thoughts here. Very appreciative to be the top spread picker on NFL by Tally Site, which does all the things online. Also moved into the top money line. I think I'm number 8 or 9. Wanted to thank everyone for their support throughout the years. I heard a lot of people, more so this year, saying they want to listen to the show, get mine and Cecil's picks. I think Cecil's doing very well for himself as well. So I just wanted to shout that out. If you ever need help with any of your picks for some of this stuff, always listen to the show. If we don't go over it or want to talk more about player props or over-unders, feel free to reach out. We're always there to help people. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're getting. Rate us 5 stars. It helps us out as we go along here. For now, thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.